If I had the last 10 years of pool in my life to do over, there would be many things that I would do differently. But I can assure you that my work concerning center to edge aiming would not be one of them. I would do everything exactly the same. I wouldn't change one single thing for fear that I might not, for some reason, reach this point to where I'm able to share with you the nuts and bolts of CTE. In other words, I've resolved it. So I wouldn't want to take any chance on a detour somewhere in the past that might not get me to this point. So it was somewhere around 2005, 2006, 2007 that I immersed myself into the study of center to edge aiming. I basically started with nothing other than see center to edge and whack it. That's what I started with. But what I was doing, and I didn't quite know it at the time, but what I was doing, I was just moving away from that paradigm of looking down the center of the cue ball, which really means that you're looking at nothing, except for those three shots that we can define, center to center, center to edge, and edge to edge. You know, in a couple hundred years, that's what pool has evolved to. You can know three things, but you can't know anything else. But it was more than 10 years ago that I made a shift away from that noser perspective to that of seeing the cue ball, object ball relationships that can occur on 2x1 table from a different perspective. Let's just call it an offset. So I moved into a perceptual world, and I didn't really know it so much at the time. I didn't know what I was even looking for. I just had to start, what do you call it, stacking rocks. I just had to start building experiences basically upon nothing. I had no manual. I had no roadmap. No real directions. You see, perception is an area that is supposed to just be in the field domain. One that doesn't offer objectivity or knowledge that you can really count on. Sort of a guesswork kind of thing. So when I went into that perceptual side of things, I didn't go into the perceptual side of things along with my math intellect, whatever that might be. Oh, I had some basic objective aspects of spheres that were that I could take with me, centers and edges and quarters and such, but that would barely be considered math, but nonetheless, that's what I took with me. But never once did I try to create a math problem. All that I could really do in this perceptual domain is acquire experience and observe and make notes. So I did have a linguistical support in that I could do something and make note of it. So I spent a long time with various materials, for example. You know, Hoole's document was a very strong link into my study. And in my book, I have one chapter that's entitled 13 Critical Links. Hoole's document is one slice of that group of links. But to me, it was a little bit like winning the lottery. It took me nearly a decade to win the lottery. I had to pull in a lot of different pieces. Let's call it 13 different pieces. You see, one thing about centered edge aiming is that it is a professional system. It's always been presented that way. But in order to satisfy the demands of a professional pool player, center to edge aiming must exist in a perfect form, one that exceeds that of feel that the professional player has accumulated through his ham experience. So centered edge aiming has to outweigh what visual intelligence can do on its own. You see, that's trial and error, it's repetition, it's the idea of being able to perform in a little bit of a void when it comes to intellectual based knowledge. In other words, I can do it, but I can't explain it. How many times have you heard the phrasing, I can't explain what I do, I just do it? Well, wouldn't it be nice if what the professional player is doing can be explained? I have a friend that is an endorsed instructor, young professional player, up and coming, Tyler Steyer. Well, I guess it was perhaps a year and a half ago. He was in a visiting situation with a well-known professional player, and the topic came up. Tyler's not bashful at all. The topic of centered edge aiming came up, more specifically the offset. So Tyler's talking to this player, and Tyler says to this individual, do you know that you're standing at an offset to the cue ball object ball relationship when you're at ball address? And this player said, no, I don't do that. I get behind the center of the cue ball. So Tyler went ahead to explain to him in no uncertain words that no, you don't. So this player said, give me my cue. Let me get my cue. So he set up a shot in a way that he would typically do. And his response was, I'll be darned. So here's a player that I've kept up with for many years that is essentially sweeping into his shot, a form of a pivot, and didn't know it. So I've observed over the past 10 years or so that most every professional player sweeps into their shots. Take a look at Ralph Souquet. If you want a model for an individual that does left and right movements into their shots. This is not easily observable because the visual sweep would total the amount of something like 1/2 of a tip. In other words, the eyes are moving the distance of about 1/2 a tip from the ball address position to the full stance position. So it's very subtle. I suspect that that's how Hoole was dialing in on when he made the comment that the top 200 players in the world were using his system. In other words, if a professional player is playing at an offset then most likely over time their offset involves a repeatable objectivity between the cue ball and the object ball. You see, your visual intelligence knows. Your nose doesn't know, but your visual intelligence knows. So if a player is standing at an offset to a shot, over time that offset would become consistent based on what one's visual intelligence can see between the cue ball and the object ball. And I'm not giving you all the pieces to this right now, but there's some phenomenal things concerning this that I am going to give to you. Count on it. Bank on it. It's a sure thing. You see, one's visual intelligence could be likened to that of a supercomputer. There's a lot of processing going on. 60% of your brain could be defined as having visual matter. But there's a lot going on with one's visual intelligence. So, for example, in an instant, I just managed 3 lines. Some would like to tag centered edge aiming as you've got to do this, and you've got to do that, and you've got to do this, and you have to do that, and it's so step-oriented that nobody can do it. That's one of the little roadblocks they like to put up to try to prevent you from entering into the world of CTE. You have to do steps. Pros don't do steps. Well, the steps that occur are happening at lightning speed. 3 lines. 3 lines. How long did that take? I can assure you it's quicker than feel, because feel you have to tweak and refine to get there. I'm already there right now, you see. I'm already there. I'm working with 3 lines that are known, that are objective. So I've got 3 lines, 3 lines, 3 lines, 3 lines, 3 lines that I'm working with. The way that I focus on those 3 lines, that's my choice according to my experience that I bring to the table. I'm going to show you how to work with these lines, how to deal with these lines, so that you can take your overall concentration and break it down into a narrowed focus according to what your needs are for a particular shot. See, this is information that's never been available before. Why? Because that world of perception has never been revealed as to what's available for you as a pool player when you look at 2 spheres on a 2x1 surface for the purpose of aiming. So I've been into this perceptual domain, and I've gathered enough material that the topic is going to be closed on my part. It will be over. So you're not going to have to pay to get this information, because I'm going to give it to you online, free of charge, the nuts and bolts of how this works. Now, if you want to follow it up with a book that has hundreds and hundreds of shots and the details spelled out, unlike you've ever seen them before, then that's where you can go. But as far as doing an online series, a truth series, you can make an informed decision if you want to shell out a little bit of money for the book. You don't have to go into the book blindly. You can make an informed decision as to whether you want to access what I know from having spent a decade into the perceptual domain, away from the noser perspective that is wrong. You see, when professional players line up, they're not putting their nose behind center cue ball like such. They're at an offset, which renders a necessity to sweep into the shot. See, that's the way you really do it. Now it can be explained. Because from a perceptual point of view, in conjunction with an offset, there's sufficient objectivity with the spheres that allow for a description of what's happening. Thank goodness that I was able to take linguistical intelligence into the perceptual field with me for my study, because I could make notes and write about it and develop a new language that I've been able to refine over time so that I can put it into book form. Fortunately, words can serve to convey what is happening in the perceptual world for the purpose of aiming two spheres. I don't need the math. If I had the math, I couldn't understand it. You see, centered edge aiming, on one hand, is very simple. It's see and align. On the other hand, center to edge aiming is very complicated. I'm interested in conveying to you the how-to, and I know that that's what you're interested in, so that you can access this real way of aligning, of seeing and aligning with a cue ball and an object ball for ball pocketing. So you've got these professional players, and don't think for 1 minute that I'm being negative with professionals. There's nobody that is more in awe of the skills of professional players than I am. But at the same time, wouldn't it be nice to be able to understand exactly what's occurring from the perspective of the visual intelligence of a professional player? If they're sweeping into the shots, is there a set of words that can explain what the offset is and the center cue ball that they arrive to can be explained in some manner? I'm not saying that professional players are exactly doing centered edge aiming. I'm saying they're very close. And I suspect that in many ways they're dead on. But if you don't know what you're doing, then you can get tripped up. So you have to be able to know what you're doing. You see, on this shot right here, I know what I'm doing. But from the field perspective, it has to be, okay, that looks right. There's a difference. So here's what I would offer for myself, and I think it applies across the board to all levels of proficient players. For myself, with the noser perspective, I was able to play good. I won an open tournament one time with the noser perspective. I think it was right at a 64-player field. A lot of professional players were in that tournament. I went through the field undefeated. I was using the noser perspective, but I tell you, I struggled. I was having to I remember Tommy Kennedy saying, he made a comment to me that you were cinching balls. Well, that was part of my struggle. I won that tournament out of resolve. I guess it was my time to win, but it was out of resolve that I won that tournament. But I was in a struggling situation. I know it, I remember it, I can still feel it today. The point being is that I won that tournament, but I wasn't at my full potential, visually and physically. The difference between me now at age 67 versus 52 when I won that open tournament is that I've reached my fullest potential now visually and physically. Now I've got a little shake in my arm, but as far as realizing my fullest potential, visually and physically, I've done so. If I could add that to the mix as a younger player, then there's no question that I would have, enjoyed my play more, because I would be in a state of full potential, visually and physically. So I'm glad that, at least at this point in my life, at 67, I've unlocked that how to see the balls, how to align, which is something very special. So there's still several things I want to cover here. This is a little bit of a long video, and I apologize for that, but concerning professional players, when a professional player moves into this shot, they're moving into this shot from an offset. They're moving into it from an offset, which means that when a player's bringing their cue in from the side, when you watch a professional player come in, they're bringing their cue in from the side. That's the telltale sign that they're sweeping. That's the telltale sign that their visual intelligence is working with them in such a way that they're angling their cue for the shot. So you see, for this shot right here, when you bring this cue in from the side, the cue actually results in an angle from out to in. From out to in. The system actually does that. Your visual intelligence actually does that. In contrast to what most everyone's teaching today is line up in a target shooting fashion. Pick out your shot, target shoot, get clean lines, get everything the same, and that's wrong. It's wrong. Some would have you to believe that that's what you do. That's wrong. So this shot right here results in a out to in alignment. If I move this ball just a tiny bit this way, and then I drop in on this shot, my cue naturally aligns from in to out. And then sometimes the cue results in a straight alignment. It's no wonder this game's so hard to grasp. You've got to know where to put your eyes. Your visual intelligence is fighting you to get your eyes in a certain place where you can connect with this table. Centered edge solves that problem. Because I can tell you what, it's hard to get there when you don't know how to get there. How in the world do you know how to align your cue when you go down? You're wanting to target shoot with clean lines every time, when your visual intelligence is wanting to lead you into a physical alignment of where your cue is in to out, out to in, and sometimes straight. Centered edge is your prescription for resolving these issues that have been causing you to spin your wheels. You don't have to go there. You can take the target shooting approach from the noser perspective and try to establish clean lines for every shot. But what you're going to be seeing, the only three things that you get to see that you really know are center to center, center to edge, and edge to edge. That's it. And you don't get to see those very well because angles are invisible and you never really know if a center to center shot is really a center to center shot. It could be a quarter of a degree off, half a degree off, and you couldn't see it. So your fight with what to do with your vision and what to do with your physical alignment can come to an end. Center to edge aiming can help you to do that. So, three lines. Three lines. Does that look complicated? Does that look complicated? 3 lines. 3 lines. Does that look complicated? Some will tell you, oh, but Stan's good at that. He can do things pretty easy, and he spent a long time at it. Folks, I think most of you are wanting to understand how to approach this game from a professional perspective. CTE is a professional aiming system. You're not going to learn it overnight. But I can assure you this, you won't spin your wheels for the rest of your life on how to do it. You can tackle it so much easier, and it's such a much shorter learning curve. So it's nice just to be able to line up, know what you're looking at. I've got 3 lines to access here. I've got 3 lines to access here. And I know all 3 of them. I can split my attention the way I want to. I can take my overall concentration, and I've got 3 ways to narrow it. 1, 2, 3. I know how to use my eyes. I know how to use my focus. I know how to teach you what to see, what to do, how to use your attention. See, I figured all that out. But there's people that want to stop it. They want me to fold tent and go home. So they do things like, I'm a delusional old man that has wasted the last 10 years of my life. Excuse me? Why would someone say that? You know the answer to that. I don't have to go there. Why would they say that I'm a rip-off artist concerning my first 2 DVDs? I think my work and my sincerity in what I'm offering proves otherwise. Why would someone say that I'm a cult leader? Oh, because he went into the world of perception and he claims that he knows something. He knows something that is outrageous. Let's get fired up, folks. We cannot let Stan present to the world something that is outrageous. We have to stop it. It's got to be stopped. You see, he's becoming like the Pope. Yeah, Pope. That's a new one. Pope. But they'll do anything to stop, try and stop, diminish, discredit, to destroy the efforts. One guy calls it caca. Can you imagine? You take a study of my work and you come away with its mumbo jumbo, it's caca. I mean, it's funny. The purpose of this video presentation actually was to get to the, I wanted to do a video to resolve, at least to some degree, a couple of issues that have come up on the forum concerning the choosing of a visual as to whether it's a judgment, feel type thing, and then deciding the thick or thin issue. Now, I want to preface this with, I'm not giving you all the information, but I will give you enough information so that you can decide whether you think I know what I'm talking about or not, and will completely spell all this out at a later time. But I'm going to give you enough to where you can form your own mind if I'm out in left field or not. So, this shot right here is, let's just say that I'm walking up to this shot, boom, for the first time in a game. Now, I can recognize in an instant by aiming the edge of the cue ball to see that that's not the solution to the shot in an instant. And it's obvious. I can aim the right edge of the cue ball to A, the quarter line for A, and it's obvious to me in an instant that that's not the solution to the shot. The truth of the matter is that when I walk up to this, I can aim edge to B, and in an instant, the solution to the shot is recognized. My visual intelligence is processing, working with those three lines. It's wonderful. It's a gift, folks. It's a gift. Hal Hoole put in motion for us a gift. And I've worked with it to get it all tied up nice and neat in a pretty bow, so that you can access it and have it should you desire. It's a gift that was never supposed to be. So yes, when I see this shot, all I have to do is aim edge to B. And in an instant, I recognize that's the solution. It's obvious, and furthermore, when I get down on it, there can be no doubt. Now, this is a professional system, so the people that come in to work with CTE, you should be at least a C player that can make a few balls, and you can start doing the same thing right off the bat. Does that mean that you don't have to work on it a few days to understand this concept of aiming the edge of the cue ball to one of the object ball targets? No, but there's no judgment to this. It's edge to B, and it's obvious, and there can be no doubt that it's right. You see, if I chose edge to C and move down, there's no doubt that I'm wrong. Edge to A, I think that's what I said. If I were to choose edge to C and I go down on this shot, there's no doubt that I'm wrong. You see, with the system, you learn the process of what to look at, and you recognize the solution in an instant. It's obvious. There's no doubt. Now, let's take a look at thick and thin. So what I'm just giving you one example here. I'm not going through everything. I'm not going to pretend to start teaching center to edge aiming until I'm ready. I'm working almost daily to get this project done so that I can get my book in the publisher's hand and so I can start my truth series. But let's say I know the perception.